So probability is defined as the number of successes divided by the total possible outcomes. Okay, so probability, just in basic terms, it's what you want, okay, the chance of something occurring that you do want, divided by the total possible things that could happen, right? And that's called the theoretical probability, okay? Whereas odds, you're comparing favorable outcomes to unfavorable, or the way I would like to say it is what you want to what you don't want. Okay, so let's look at some examples and we'll compare. So say for example, here you have a hat. There's 3 red marbles, 2 blue marbles, and 1 black marble in the hat. We want to find out what's the probability that you're blindfolded, you reach in and you pick a red marble. Well, according to our definition, there's 3 chances of getting a red marble, right? So the probability would be 3 divided by the total number of outcomes, which is 6, and you can reduce that down to 1/2. So that's the probability, okay? You could also write this as 0.5. So probability is in between 0 and 1. 0 means no chance, 1 means 100% guaranteed. Okay, now let's do a different example. Say we want to know the odds that you pick a red marble. Well, there's 3 favorable outcomes, 3 things that you want, okay, compared to 3 things that you don't want, unfavorable. So the odds would be, I'll just write odds, is 3 to 3, which is 1 to 1. You could also write this using a colon, 1 to 1, okay? Or you could even use it right with a word, 2, 1 to 1, odds, okay? So that's one example. Let's look at the spinner over here. Okay, say for example, the spinner, we're going to spin it. And we say, well, what's the probability that I land on 2? Well, there's only 1, 2. Okay, and these regions are all the same size and shape. So there's 1 chance of landing on 2 divided by 4 possible outcomes. The probability is going to be 1/4. But if we said, what are the odds that you land on 2? Well, 1 chance of landing on 2 to 3 chances of not landing on 2, the odds would be 1 to 3. Okay, now let's switch it up a little bit. Let's say we want to find out what are the odds against landing on the number 2. So now the odds against means we don't want to land on 2. So what are the chances that we don't land on 2? Well, there's 3 non-2s to 1 2. So the odds against would be 3 to 1. Notice it's the reciprocal of the one that we did, odds in favor. So odds in favor is what you want to what you don't want. Odds against is what you don't want to what you do want, okay? Now, experimental versus theoretical probability, what's the difference? Well, say for example, we run an experiment, right? We spin this spinner 100 times. And out of those 100 times, let's say the number 2 comes up 22 times. Okay, so the experimental probability would be 22 out of 100 trials. That's the probability, and you could reduce it down. It would reduce down to 11 50ths, right? You could divide them both by 2. But what's the theoretical? In theory, what's the probability that we land on 2? Well, 1 chance of landing on 2 out of 4 possible things that could occur, right? So experimental, you just think you're running an experiment. You're running trials. You do it 100 times or 20 times or 1,000 times, and you count how many successes, how many things occur that you're interested in having happen out of the total trials, and that's your experimental probability. Now, as the number of trials go up, okay, assuming that this is, balanced, these are equally spaced, the spinner, there's no glitchiness to it and whatnot, this experimental probability will likely become closer and closer to the theoretical probability. But who knows? Maybe there's some other factors that are influencing the probabilities in such a way that they're not the same. Okay, but these are the definitions. So probability, odds in favor, odds against, experimental probability, and theoretical probability. So if you're enjoying these videos, you're learning something, as I hope you are, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.